Welcome back to another After Effects tutorial breaking down this McDonald's clip. So you'll see we've got this McDonald's clip and I've already brought in the vectored logo. Now I'm just going to center it on the composition and turn it into a 3D layer. You can see that I've got it as the Cinema 4D renderer as well. With the circle tool, you're going to draw on the same layer so that it's all part of the same shape layer, and just move that layer to below the M so the M sits on top. And then we're going to make a copy of that circle we've just drawn to then create the inner circle for the coin. And if you toggle down into that layer, you'll just be able to change the scale of it, like so. And now we're going to use the pen tool to create a highlight around the coin. Again, remain selected on that same shape layer that you've got, so then all of the vectors are contained within one layer. We're going to toggle down into that path we've just drawn and make the path white. Then I'm going to make a duplicate, so you select the layers that you need and Command D, and then drop those layers in a reverse order to the bottom of the stack. So basically then in 3D we can see the McDonald's logo on the reverse of the coin as well. Also just toggle down into the geometry of the shape layer and make the extrusion depth 40 or 80 or whatever you want to make it. I've made mine 40. And you'll see that the stroke is thinner on the reverse than it is on the front. We also need to reverse the layer stack of stroke and fill, which I'll do now. So yeah, basically copy what I'm doing on screen and you'll get the same effect, but this means that our stroke will be the same width on the front as it is on the back. It's a bit annoying that that's not naturally the case, but this is the way I found that works. It's a nice little workaround anyway. And now just put the camera back to active camera and you can test out, see how it looks. And we're going to now create the animation following what we've got on the McDonald's advert. Here I'm doing position, scale and orientation. If you want to create multiple spins or rotations as the coin comes out of the screen, you just, instead of doing orientation, keyframe the rotation points like the X, Y and the Z, and you'll get more control. I just used orientation because I was filming it initially for the reel and it'll make it quicker for me without having as much to explain. But for the sake of YouTube, and if you're going to make anything, if you want more control, do the full 3 rotation options. Because with orientation you can only like spin it one full circle, so you can't give it as much dramatic kind of rotation. So you can see I've scaled from 0 to 100 and then off the screen and just animated the rotation as well. You don't need to have me explain everything here, like you can just do it from the screen. Easy ease, however you like. This is how I've done it. And then I'm obviously gonna duplicate this coin and do it for the 3 other coins. Again, you don't need to follow this tutorial 100%. You can do this with typography, you can do this with images, whatever it is. Just create like a 3D layer and test out what works for you. So I've duplicated all of the layers here, so it's now 4 coins, and I'm just going to like alternate the position where it animates out and change some of the rotation so then they kind of stagger out. Okay, from here I'm just going to fast forward the clip to double speed, because otherwise it's going to be like 10 minutes of me animating these coins, which you really don't need a walkthrough for. You're going to just follow the steps on the first one and then add variation to the other 3. Also, I'm pretty sure the playback speed for your animation shouldn't be as bad as mine. It's just currently London is a heat wave and my Mac is really struggling with the heat. It's definitely like slowing my playback and my rendering speeds, but hopefully for you it's not so bad. So now I'm kind of happy with the coins. I'm going to use a solid layer and drop it into the background, make it red. Again, you can make it whatever you want, and I just make it slightly bigger than the comp so we don't get any edges. Using the safe zones, I'm now going to get the pen tool and draw these speed lines. Again, make them white, make them as thick as you like. You can make speed lines in another way, but for this I'm making it with a pen tool. We're going to use trim paths as well. So once you've got the line in a position from the center to the outside of the comp that you're happy with, you toggle down into path I'm going to add taper lines to kind of make it thinner at the beginning and thinner at the end and thicker in the middle. And then we're going to go add trim paths and then animate the in and out points. Copy what I do on the screen. Basically when the end 0 to 100 and the start 0 to 100, and then you offset the start a few frames, so then it kind of like follows its animation in and follow its animation out. So you can see the further you offset the start and end point, the longer the animation will be, and I kind of want it to animate across the screen and then animate out. And then again, just duplicate them and rotate them around the frame. There are other methods you can use, but again, I don't want them super regular, I want them quite irregular. I've got Motion Tools Pro, so I can easily like offset layers, but you can just do this manually, like it's not a must. Motion Tools Pro did used to be free, but now it's not, I'm afraid, which is a shame. I'm sure they probably do an offer or a deal sooner or later. It did definitely used to be free though. And then you'll see I've just like selected all of those layers and then duplicated them again and just sporadically rotated them around the comp, because these layers we're going to use the same, and then just make the path thinner, like a thinner point, a smaller point size though, and then make them more irregular, and these are going to be like slightly bursting just a few frames after our initial burst. Here I've actually done too many, and later on in this tutorial I'll reduce them. But again, freestyle it, you don't need to make it exactly the same, do whatever you want. Here I've just sped this up again, but it's just the same, offsetting the layers. And I'm just going to double check with the McDonald's asset and then rearrange the coins a little bit more to sit nicer on the comp, because obviously we're going to animate in the text after. We want a kind of empty center point. Now I'm adding an adjustment layer, and I'm going to use posterize time and do it at 12 frames per second. My comp is always 24 frames just because that's my preference. I enjoy it, and I love the kind of like 12 frames stop motion-y style. I prefer it personally. I do that on most of my animations, to be honest. Client stuff, no, I keep it 24 or 30, but for my own illustrations and animations I do 12 frames. But I always do it as an adjustment layer so I can kind of toggle it on, toggle it off. I'll generally always animate 24 frames and then create my adjustment layers after to add the styles and the flavor, let's say. So now we've got this animation. If you've been following along on the screen, you should be similar. Now we're going to add in the star kind of like detail. Use the shape tool and just toggle into the star. You can change however many points you want, and we're going to keep a kind of simple animation. We're going to scale from 0 to 100 to 0, and then rotation 0 to 90, 0 to 180, 0 to 1, however much spin you want to keep it. We're just going to do that. You can just follow along on the screen anyway. Just get the star into the position that you like, and then I put it below the adjustment layer, and now parenting it to the coin I want it to attach to. When you parent it, it does take on the scale, position, rotation properties that you've parented it to, so you may have to just slightly adjust some of your properties, which you see here. I'm just got to readjust the scale basically. I don't need it to be so huge, but if you also make sure that layer is a 3D layer, it will maintain attached to the coin and kind of animate in and out with it, which is pretty cool. And now I'm just going to align it with the McDonald's asset we've got, and this is where I said I'm going to like delete some of the extra lines because there's no way we need that many. And then just start to position them and time them where we need. So once you're happy with that, we're going to bring in the text layer. And for this tutorial, I want to keep the text editable. I generally always try and keep my layers editable, because if you're on a client job, chances are the text and the copy will change. So personal preference for me is do the most whilst keeping it editable. So yeah, get your text layer, type whatever word you want and style it however you want. I'm going white text, black outline. It's a classic for me, and I'm just matching it to the asset we're copying. Scale it up as you wish, and I've just anchor pointed to the bottom center of the text so it animates from the center of the screen. And then the second layer of text, because I want to stagger it, I've anchor pointed it to the top center, so basically they both animate out from the center. And then from here I'm going to animate the scale properties from 0 to 100, and then I'm going to actually do 3 scale properties, so 0 to like 110 and then back down to 100 to keep that kind of like anticipation, it over animates in and then scales back down. And then yeah, ease however you wish. And we're going to end up offsetting these, and like the first word comes in like 2 frames ahead of the second word. Good. We also want the text layer to be below the coins, so then like it animates in behind them. And then I'm going to create the kind of animate in and out points. So if you use the backspace tab, you can align your layers that you've got selected. It's easier to do the animation when they're both on the same and then offset, which is why I did wrong before. So yeah, animate in from 0 to like 110, 120, 130, whatever you want, and then back down to 100, and it will look like this. And then we create the offset where we stagger it by 2 frames, so then the first layer comes in and then the second one. So yeah, once you've got your text animating in and you're happy with it, we're gonna then kind of stylize the text. Again, this is me keeping the text editable. I'm going to use CC PowerPin to create the kind of perspective slants, warp, I don't know how you're going to describe it. And I'm going to copy and paste that into the other layer, and it will maintain that kind of same slant. And this still keeps the text editable, let me repeat. There's obviously other methods you can use, but this means we can retype the word. And then it animates in like so. And I'm going to create the drop shadow by creating a copy of those layers and making the text fill black and just slightly offsetting, animating the position offset basically. So I'm just kind of double checking what's done in the McDonald's advert. I think the way we're going to do is similar. There's so many other ways, and this is giving me ideas for more tutorials. I've got a bunch of other kind of extrusion methods that again keep the text editable, but for here we're going to honor the McDonald's advert and just do it as a simple position offset. I think we've covered quite a lot of methods in this tutorial, and it's maybe a bit complex. I'm not sure, but anyway, plenty more tutorials to come. As I'm doing this, I'm thinking of so many more. But yeah, if you just copy what I'm doing on the screen, you can see I'm just animating the position of these base layers, I guess. They're parented to the main text layer, and again just offsetting them so then the shadow animates in a staggered method to as it comes in basically. So your animation should look like this now. Quite nice, if I do say so. And then from here, I'm going to just add in more of the stars basically. I'm going to play this at rapid speed because you already know how we made the star. You're just going to copy that process, make a duplicate of that layer and just reposition it so it attaches to a new coin. And yeah, make the animation however you want basically. I hope you learn some new methods and new techniques. If there's anything else you want to learn, do drop me a comment. Obviously I've got a few more ideas of things I want to make anyway, and I'll be dropping them first on Instagram and then more in-depth versions here. If you made it this far, thank you very much, and drop me a comment if you need anything else.